Test, test, test. Howdy. What's up today, Internet? And it looks like we got nobody in the live stream. I'm here all by my lonesome self. Hey, Fish Loft, welcome to the stream. Does the sound okay? Hey, down the wormhole, welcome to the stream. Is the sound okay? I need a sound check. Number 9, number 9. Testing. I'm getting it on my headphones, so it must be all right. Thank you, down the wormhole. The background is some of the new Aru 2s that we got from Lucas. I bought these fish at the Aquatic Experience because they were in Lucas's Aquatic Experience aquascaping tank, and also there are a few of his lime green endlers in there. I think we got 2 females and 1 male, so we should start cranking out lime endlers as well as Lucas's tiger rainbow endlers here pretty soon. They're gorgeous little fish. Unfortunately, we got all males, so we now have 5 males and 1 female Aru 2, and we're going to have to rectify that situation pretty soon. I set the camera up this morning and threw a little food in there. The tank is pretty bare of plant life right now. There is some still on the bottom, but I'm shooting mid-water here to catch these fish swimming around. Excuse me. Because this tank is where the baby Gorder Rivers were, and there are still 4 or 5 in this tank. But when I was emptying it to bring these RO2s home, I couldn't catch them unless I got the big plants out of there. So my wife still has to put the big plants back in. They're beautiful little pseudomagills, and the males are quite the little peacocks. They will flash and flare at each other every time they see one another. It's a who looks the prettiest contest. So yeah, they're beautiful looking fish. And these fish come from both Indonesia, the very southern parts of Indonesia, and from the islands that are between Indonesia and Australia. So obviously they were all connected at one point, and through tectonic movements are no longer connected. They're now trapped on an island pretty much, and on the southern part of Indonesia. Phil, if Rufus wants out, let him.
Yeah, I'm letting him out.
All right. So that's the explanation of the background here. It's just basically a mid-water shot of that 20-gallon, what was our quarantine tank, and became the baby tank for the Gorder River rainbows, because my wife she was cleaning some moss out of her 75-gallon and putting it in the quarantine tank, and lo and behold, there were eggs in the moss, and so we ended up with baby Gorder Rivers in the quarantine tank. Once again, I have no real axe to grind today. I hope you guys got a chance to check out the fish room tour that my wife and I did. We spent about 4 hours at Lucas's house. Meeting his family, chatting with him about fish, checking out his setup, checking out the amazing tanks that he had. And my wife spent a great deal of time talking to him about plants, about aquatic plants. She's quite the botanist, my wife is, and is a master gardener and knows all things land plants. But she's still learning when it comes to aquarium plants. So I know she had a great time talking to Lucas, getting some information from him about how he grows certain plants and the way he does things. Lucas's fish room was immaculate. The fish looked fantastic. Some people might consider his tanks less than spotlessly clean, but the honest to God truth is spotlessly clean tanks, i.e. glass, i.e. The bottom, mulm on the bottom, mulm on the sides of the tanks, all those things are contrivances for us to enjoy looking at our fish and thinking that if they're in a nice clean environment that they will be easier for us to watch, easier for us to see. And the real truth is that the fish much prefer a more natural environment, and the natural environment will include moss growing everywhere, will include mulm and detritus, will include plant litter. If you take a look at most South American rivers, people that have taken cameras down and are showing you what the bottom of the rivers look like, very few of them have any green plants at all. Most of it is just leaf and branch detritus. Most of it is leaf litter. Most of it is just like gray mulm-looking moss that's growing, hanging everywhere. It's not really a plant. It's more along the lines of a, well, I guess it could even be bacteria, you know, strands of bacteria that are growing, hanging in the water. And it's not really a green nor a pristine environment. Very rarely you will find that. Sometimes, you know, like on the bottom of the Rift Valley lakes where African cichlids live, those are pretty pristine looking because it's basically sand and rocks and that's it. You know, there's no plants, there's not much detritus because the flow of the lake washes it away. And Down the Wormhole says, I've never gotten to do a fish room tour of anyone's house yet. Nice. Well, there are fish room tours. You know, you will find people at your local clubs and places like that to do fish room tours. But Lucas is something entirely different. Lucas is 200 plus tanks. Lucas is... the thing about Lucas's fish room that's so amazing is that it's all little stuff. Lucas has nothing that's, you know, like blue galaris and mascara barbs and rainbows are about the largest thing he's got in his fish room. Now, he did have that arowana, but it passed, so he has very little large stuff in his tanks. Most of it is tank after tank after tank of shrimp, of tetras, of small dither fish almost. It's a 200 tank fish room full of dither fish. And it's amazing. It's really stunning. He's got some stunning varieties of fish. He's got new things that he's working on. He's got old things that he's bringing back. I'm not about to steal any of his thunder. I'm not going to tell you things that I saw that he talked about that were coming up. I kept all that stuff out of the video because I did not want to presume or to presuppose what he's up to. So anything that was like that we talked about that I caught on film didn't make it into the video because I wanted to be very circumspect and I wanted to be very respectful to Lucas's right to do as he sees fit and to keep stuff under wraps if that's what he's wanting to do. And Lucas has got lots of irons and lots of fires, so I highly recommend that you guys keep up with his website for when stuff starts breaking. And believe me, he's got a ton of stuff to break on his website. Now, I know that he goes first to his Patreons. So unless you're a Patreon, you may have to wait until after the stuff makes it out into the public website. But he's got enough stuff to where anybody shouldn't have any trouble getting what they want. They're just going to have to wait a while until it comes up. I got to look at his shrimp. I got to look at his new shrimp lines. I got to look at his old shrimp lines that he's sold out of and then is building back up again. They look fantastic. I did put some video of the A team and the B team of his Blue Dreams in there. So I highly recommend that you check out what little bit that I put in there of those two setups, and I think you'll find that his blues are coming along nicely and should surpass the Patreon's needs and make it out into the general public on the website pretty soon. So Lucas hates to sell his stuff. He works really hard. He takes phenomenal care of his creatures, and he hates to let them go. They're his, and he hates to sell them. But he's running a business, so he has to sell so much. He regrets it sometimes if he sells too much, and then he has a hard time for the colonies to rebound. But he is a businessman, so he's in the process, in the business to sell fish. But you will find some phenomenal offerings from him as they become available. He's got some fantastic new lines of guppies coming out. Down the Wormhole says, I have met one YouTuber in town. Maybe one day we can tour each other's room. And that sounds like a perfect thing to do, Down the Wormhole, is to connect with another YouTuber, someone who has the same passion about their hobby as you do. Down the Wormhole says, no club here, but some amazing hobbyists. Well, if there really is no club in a close proximity to you, that sounds like a crying need for the creation of a club. You know, clubs are difficult to get off the ground. They require a core of dedicated people who will keep going when there's almost no response, and then be there to keep things together when the response finally comes and is overwhelming. You know, it's rags to riches sometimes with clubs, and they get so big and unwieldy all of a sudden that you can't really keep them the way you kept them before when it was just a small core. But nonetheless, I would highly advise setting a club up, Down the Wormhole. It's not that difficult in this day and age with the internet. You can keep all your minutes and your meetings and stuff online now, and there's a genuine interest in this hobby out there, and there are some phenomenal people doing really great work behind the scenes, in the sense of no one really knows they're there. No one really knows what they're doing except maybe some close friends of theirs and close hobbyist friends of theirs, and maybe the people that buy from them when they have more than they can take care of. We work in this hobby. We work and work and work to try to get a fish to breed and to try to raise the fry until they're uh, old enough to be sold. And then suddenly we have this huge tank full of fry that are ready to be sold, and you find one person that wants 10 of them, and you still have 150 of them, and you're trying to get rid of them. So we go from rags to riches here, in the sense that we can't breed something and we work really hard at it, and then we do breed something, and when it works, we end up with this huge collection of baby fish that need to be sold off to someone to take care of them. But suddenly you flood the market with those, and there's no demand anymore, and you're stuck with these fish. So, it's kind of a catch-22. A lot of times it's good to make contact with local fish stores if you're someone that has a pretty steady breeding program going on, because then you can usually off-sell to the local fish stores, because they love to get well-bred and well taken care of stock from locals, but they're not going to give you what they're worth. And so the best way to do it is usually to trade your extra fry for food, for sundries, for the pieces and parts that it takes to keep your own aquarium hobby going. Back in the 70s when I was breeding Jack Dempsey's, that's basically what I did. And I would raise up 500 or 600 3/4 inch Jack Dempsey's, and I would cull out the ones that I wanted to keep for my own breeding purposes. Several different, what if I could tell, pairs, and I would set those aside in other tanks, and then I would sweep the rest of them out and bring them into several different local fish stores. At the time in Dallas, there were a great many fish stores. So I would take them in and trade them for flake food, for, if I needed a pump, or if I needed a power head, or I needed an air pump, I would try to trade as much in as possible. I think I was getting, what was I getting? I think I was getting a quarter a piece for 3/4 inch Dempsey's back in the 70s. And that was pretty good, pretty decent money. There was a demand for them. So a lot of people would buy them. I could bring 400 or 500 in, and they'd put 100 in one of their tanks and sell them for a buck or $1.50 a piece, and they could make money off of them, and they sold pretty quickly because there was a lot of demand for Jack Dempsey's at that time. And occasionally what I would do is use some of that money to buy something that was out of the ordinary. I got my first zebra pleco that way. It was $25, and that was back when zebra lure were just coming into the hobby. They were really new, and so I would build up some credit, and I would use it to buy stuff like that. Oddball catfish that they got in, I loved those. Tetras, whatever I had enough money left over to buy. But mostly I bought the sundries that kept the rest of my hobby going. Food, dechlor, medications, that kind of stuff. But if you get it going well, you can actually make a go of that. Okay, looks like we got 3 watching. I'm having a slow Saturday. I hope that everybody is out enjoying their Saturday out in the wild, which I actually prefer in some ways, that people not sit and watch videos, that they get out and enjoy the outdoors. I think that's a really good thing. I appreciate those of you that are here, but I'm not unhappy that people might be doing other things with their Saturday, and because of that they're not here. I applaud that. But I do appreciate those of you that do stop by and show me your support. I am thankful for that. And I hope that I offer some tidbit along the way that will give you guys a leg up on your hobby. Anybody have any questions? Any talking about what's going on in their fish room? Down the wormhole is lurking while cleaning up for kiddo's birthday. Well, kiddos are way more important than this hobby and this live stream down the wormhole. They grow up so fast, so enjoy them while you got them. It seems like it takes forever for the first couple of years to go by, and then the next 15 go by in a flash. So I guess I can try to dig a tip up, since that's one of the things we do here, is steal tips from 500 Ways to Be a Better Freshwater Fish Keeper. Last week, her first birthday party. Woohoo! Congrats on her first birthday party. Okay. Well, I turned to the plant section, and that's probably not the best section for me to be talking about. Aquascaping. Better feeding. Better feeding 206. Variety ensures the best diet for your fish. Try to offer a varied diet, even if your fish seem perfectly happy with a good quality flake food. The wider the menu, the more likely it is to provide all the essential vitamins, minerals, and trace elements. A flake-only diet may encourage the condition known as Malwee bloat in Rift Lake cichlids, and it may not be suitable for species that naturally consume a great deal of vegetable matter. And I have always been a firm believer. Hey, Michael Tett, welcome to the stream, man. I think that's a really good tip. Now, Lucas and I did, she's turning 6. She's getting to that stage where things like birthday parties are going to start to matter a lot. Ray's Fish Room, welcome to the stream. Ray says, hi Dwayne, just got to New Jersey to visit my brother and brought my nephew a few fish for his tank. Are you going to Connecticut for the NEC convention? And he'd like to say hi, and I'd be more than happy to say hi and shake the hand of anybody that's at any of the conventions that recognizes me and says, hey. Hippies and pseudomagillies, says Michael Tett. Well, I prefer to think of myself as a hill hippie, if that makes any difference. You don't have to retract your message, man. Ray, I will not be going to Connecticut. Connecticut's just a little bit outside my wheelhouse. Actually, the things that are in the tank, Michael, are, like you said, pseudomagills, Aru2 pseudomagills. There are lime endlers in there, and that's what you might be thinking of as guppies. And there are also the fastest thing that zips by the screen are Gorder River babies that we've still got in this tank, where the RO2s I got from Lucas are. Hey, Corona Ken, welcome to the stream, man. I think that tip was really a good one, and Lucas and I spent some time talking about this. Hey, Flynn, welcome to the stream. Lucas and I spent some time talking about this at his fish room because, as most of you know, Lucas feeds almost entirely tetracolor granules to his fish, and I'm always trying to goad him into trying other things to feed his fish. But he has a very good methodology that he uses, because he likes to ship out fish that are ready to eat anything that goes in their tank, so that they're not fussy eaters. They don't demand a certain thing to eat. And if he can get them all eating tetragranules, except for a few exceptions that he knows he's got to feed other stuff to, then that's what he feeds and why he does it. But I'm a firm believer in offering my fish a cornucopia of food. I feed live food, I feed frozen food, I feed Repashy gel, I feed pellets, I feed wafers, I feed powders, I feed flakes, and I feed tiny granules. So, okay, we got 2 questions. Michael, I'm going to get back to yours in just a second. Wayne Petrillo, welcome to the stream. He says, need a little help. 2 of my angelfish have little white bumps on them, and I believe it is Chilodonella. Been treating for 5 days and have seen little change, treating with a microblyph herbal active. Should I stop and switch or continue with this? Okay. Chilodonella, that's not ringing any bells for me. I know that it is possible for fish to develop cysts that are non-invasive and non-threatening to the fish. Let's see. You say that you're using microlift herbal actives. Can you expound on that a little bit and give us a better idea of exactly what you're using? Are you using one of these 2, Melafix and Pimafix? Because that's what, hey Priscilla, welcome to the stream. That's what I think of when I think of herbal actives. They're not exactly hard medication. They're like herbal medication almost. And I use them as my first line of defense when I feel like that they are, that I don't want to go hard at the tank with medication, that I want to, hey Wet Sleeves, welcome to the stream. So Wayne, if you could flesh out a little bit, and while you are, I will go get my, Corona Ken says he just Googled it and it's bad stuff. I will go get my my medical book for fish and see what we have to say in there. Oh, sorry to leave you guys hanging. I went to my go-to, which is Handbook of Fish Diseases, Dieter Untergasser, and we're going to look up Chiladinella. And what this should tell you is that this is something I don't remember. It's Herbtana, 100% natural expelling for parasitic diseases. Okay, you got me on that one too. I've never heard of that. Chiladinella species treatment, 123. Okay. All right, method C, acroflavin, tryptophan. Use, skin turbidity or clouding, mouth rot, fin rot, and disinfection of small wounds. Spectrum of action, Costia species, Chiladinella species, Trichodina species, Trichodinella species, Flexibacteria, fin and skin turbidity or cloudiness. Both names refer to the same drug. It dyes intensely. Acroflavin can be put into the completely set up aquarium but severely damages plants. The filter substrate should be cleaned before addition of the drug. After treatment, filter over activated charcoal to remove the drug. Stock solution, 1 gallon to 1 liter of water. Dosage A, 1 milliliter stock solution to each liter of aquarium water to prevent infections. Dosage B, 3 milliliter stock solution to each liter of water for 4 days to help against infections in the early stage. Dosage C, 5 milliliters of stock solution to each liter of water in a separate container for 2 to 4 days against Columnaris species, Costia species, Trichodina species, and Chiladinella species. So they're recommending 5 milliliters of a stock solution to each liter of water in a separate container. So in other words, that must be a bath. Dosage C is a bath that they're recommending. And this is acroflavin, tryptophan. And the stock solution is 1 gallon to 1 liter of water. So, 1 gram, 1 G to 1 liter of water. So that's the stock solution. So they're recommending acroflavin, ACRIFLAVIN, or tryptophan, TRYPAFLAVIN. And that's about the best I'm going to be able to give you, because that's something I've not dealt with personally. And I'd hate to give you some personal recommendation and not be using it. I see Corona Ken's got a link for you. Wayne says it also treats icks, flukes, costis trichondia, and odium, if that helps. Yeah, that's a good thing. I've got 3 or 4 things that I use for parasitic, but you may be in another country and we may not be able to match medications. Hey, Sean Redmond, welcome to the stream. Do I like latex gloves? I think they have their place, but I don't find latex gloves very conducive to like pulling stuff out of the sand or grabbing onto a fine plant. Um, Priscilla asks, ever use maple wood in a tank? I found a bunch. Priscilla, I would caution against maple in a tank because I think that it would leach out a great deal of resins and oils. But that said, if you soak it, if you find it in a creek somewhere where it's been in the water for years and years, then it's probably not going to do much damage to the stuff in your tank. Maple is a very hard, dense wood, and it does have quite a few resins in it. So I'm going to say that fresh maple that's not been dried for a long time or has not been soaked in water for a long time to leach out some of the oils and tannins in it would probably not be that great. But that if you found a bunch of it and you want to use it, if you've got a creek or a stream nearby that you think that you can hide some wood in so that other people won't find it, then I would recommend that you put it in a basket and sink it in the river or sink it in the creek deep enough where people wouldn't be able to see the basket and recognize what was there. And then after 6 months or 3 months or something like that, go fish it out and let it dry in the sun for a long time, and then brush it off real good with some kind of stiff wire brush, and maybe even hit it with hydrogen peroxide. And yes, Michael Tett's asking how to find Priscilla's art, and Corona Ken popped that up, and I can highly recommend Priscilla's art. As many of you know, I'm a proud owner of some of Priscilla's artwork. This is the original. Well, probably not the original. This is the one that she worked off of and worked on to give me my finished product for my avatar. And I thank Priscilla profusely for gifting me with such a beautiful piece of artwork. And I would highly recommend to any of you that you pick up as much Priscilla artwork as you can. Hey, Kevin Hyatt, welcome to the stream, man. We're just going on about whatever today, as usual, as per usual of my live streams. So if you've got questions, oh, and I bypassed Michael's question about awesome best suggestions for breeding rainbows. Now, Michael, rainbows are something that I had like brief encounters down through the years where I would keep one and maybe have a hard time keeping them alive. Like, I know I've had pseudomcgills before, but it was a very long time ago, like in the 70s, and I didn't really understand anything about the fish, and I did not keep them alive for very long, unfortunately, for my pocketbook and for the poor fish themselves that got stuck with me as a keeper. So I am new to rainbow fish in the sense that my wife got some for the 75 when we first set it up, and sadly those are all gone now. But I am learning as we go along, and I got about 17 from Jimmy when Jimmy moved out west, and something happened in that tank, that 75. I'm guessing from how devastating it was that it was Colmenares, And I've talked to many people. I tried all kinds of medication. I tried medicated foods. I tried all over the counter lightweight medications, heavyweight medications, everything I could think of. And basically we got down to 5 fish from about 26 fish. So we're starting again. The suggestion for breeding, the only thing that I can, and Priscilla says, hey, sorry I wasn't reading chat, just listening to Dwayne. Thanks for the wood type, but that seems too much trouble. I got a smaller white weathered piece. I'm boiling now and I'll let the sun dry it and boil. The way we managed to get these baby Gorda Rivers was my wife had a great deal of mosses, different kinds of mosses in the 75 where all these fish were. And when I set up that quarantine tank, the 20-gallon right next to the 75, she started deciding she wanted to put different plants in the tank. So she started pulling wads of moss. Smokey, is that you? She started pulling wads of moss out of the tank and sticking it in the quarantine tank to give it some plants. And lo and behold, there were rainbow eggs in that moss. And so we have baby Gorda Rivers because the egg-filled moss went into the quarantine tank by itself. And sure enough, I started noticing fry in there. I said, honey, we've got babies in here. So we got about 24 of them, I guess, survived. And the larger ones, what Lucas calls runners, the bigger ones, the faster ones, probably males, are all in the 75 once again. And we got some baby praycocks, neon praycocks, dwarf neon praycocks from Lucas, from his lines. And they are also in that tank now with the 5 surviving fish. And the 5 surviving fish have gone about 3 months without anything bad happening to them. So I'm guessing, knock on wood, I'm guessing that whatever it was in that tank has passed. Kevin says, I'm keeping Gorda River rainbows as well. Love these guys. I've really learned to like them. They are very cichlid-like in their behavior, you know, like big cichlids. They have a lot of mannerisms that are very similar to cichlids, but they are little bolts of greased lightning when they move around that tank. I've not seen fish that were much quicker than rainbows, especially when you're feeding them. And Kevin says that happened to me too, except I believe them to be yellow mountain minnows. Well, that's a cool way to grow, to get baby mountain minnows too. Some people have a lot of trouble, Kevin, with mountain minnows, so you may have hit on a great way to breed them and raise them. You know, Lucas's method is to put 2 adults in a tank and leave them for a week or 2 and feed them heavily and then pull them out of that tank and put them in another and see what he gets egg-wise from the tank to see if, you know, fry develop. If they've spawned for a couple of weeks and not eaten all the eggs, and then you allow those eggs to develop naturally, and that's a good way to do it. Also, like my wife did, is to pull plants out that they might have used as a spawning area and to stick those in the... If you leave the plants that are the spawning area in the tank, they'll eat their own fry. It's not like those fry are going to survive. Kevin says, yeah, I didn't even see eggs. Just moss in a new tank, and days later I had specks swimming around. Yep, that's exactly Exactly. We live and learn. I have Glossolaps doridii from Brett's. They are gorgeous and I want to make more. I have a 5-gallon. I could transfer some moss into a well-planted seasoned 5-gallon. Yep. I mean, there's lots of ways to do it. You can put the adults over a screen that the eggs can pass through and the adults can't pass through. And that way the babies have a area at the bottom of the tank to develop in. You know, and the adults won't mind just having the top 2/3 of the tank to play in. They'll be fine with that. So, you know, there's lots of different ways to go about breeding. And breeding is a tough thing to do sometimes. And it takes, you know, there's a lot of species that simply will not breed in aquariums. And it's because we don't know how to provide the things that they need to breed successfully, or for the fry to be raised successfully. It can be something as stupid as the right kind of rocks on the bottom of the tank. It can be something as pervasive as creating an unnatural dry season in an aquarium, which is kind of difficult for us to let the water level drop, to let the TDS raise because of the evaporation and the lack of new water coming in, to have the amount of food available drop really low. That's creating a winter season or creating a dry season for that wild fish would undergo. And so if you can create that in your own tank and then suddenly start doing heavy water changes, the rainy season comes and suddenly they're getting heavy water changes, and a great many fly larvae and bugs and worms and what have you to feed them, things that fatten them up. You know, that's creating a natural dry season going into wet season, breeding season. And sometimes it takes something like that to tick them off. For Jack Dempsey's, I found that splashing water on the surface of the water and having a lot of loose plants floating around in the water kind of kicked them off like they were in their natural breeding season. Because think about it, the trees start greening up, the heavy thunderstorms come, the rains, the wind blows leaves into the water, the wind will blow plants into the water. It's a situation where you're creating something that is very similar to what they experienced in the wild. And it takes thinking outside the box to do that sometimes. It takes Eric Bodrock's quote, "Be the fish." Sometimes it takes you understanding what the fish is telling you it needs, because they're talking to you whether you know it or not. You just have to learn how to read what it is that they're saying. And if you can be the fish, if you can recognize what they like, if you can recognize what they need, if you can recognize when they're ready to breed and need fattening up so that it's possible for them to breed and to have heavy enough eggs that the fry survive. You know, there's all kinds of little tidbits that go into it. And the little tip out of the book was to feed a wide and varied diet. Sometimes that wide and varied diet will kick off breeding behavior. If they've been eating flake food for 4 months and suddenly you start feeding them frozen Daphnia, if you start feeding them bloodworms, frozen bloodworms, if you start feeding them live microworms and things like that, suddenly they feel like they've kicked into the season where there's a lot of fatty foods for them to eat. Hey stranger, welcome to the stream, Jeremy. How's Jeremy's Saturday going? I hope it's going good, man. To fatten fish up for breeding gives the female a chance to put on a lot of weight, gives the males a chance to put on a lot of weight, and it is part of the natural cycle in the wild that mostly fish will wait until there's a large food source, eat a great deal of that food source, and while it's still there, they will breed and let their eggs hatch and develop and the fry scatter while there's still a great deal of food for the fry to find easily. It's just nature's way of doing things, and it is a cycle that if we're careful and if we're thoughtful and if we're able to think outside the box, oh gosh, Michael. Michael says, just a funny story. I took your advice on getting my Apisto eggs to make it. It worked, but I didn't see the wigglers in the back of the cave. Dumped it out in the main tank, and they all got eaten. Oh, man. Well, at least you know whose fault it was that time. But you're right. Now at least you know that they are viable, and they may have, since they lost that bunch of fry, you may find them hiding a little more when they go to set up housekeeping again. They may do it somewhere where it's not so easy for you to pull it out of the tank. Fish are smart. They know what's going on. Priscilla, yes, that is Eric Bodrock's mantra. If you talk to him, if you see him speak, the words "be the fish" will come out of his mouth often and forcefully. He knows wherefore he speaks. If you watch tours of his fish room, you will find that it is in action in all of his tanks. Every tank that's in that house for he and his wife is as much the fish keeper as Eric is, whether he likes that idea or not. He might be kind of threatened by that idea. But she is a phenomenal fish keeper in her own right, and they both are evidence of be the fish because they understand what it is those fish require, and they know what works for them, and they do it. They use it. I know in one of the videos I saw that a lot of his tanks just have regular sand out of a local river. He just goes down and scoops it out and lets it dry and puts it in his tanks. He doesn't spend a lot of money on ultra expensive substrates. He doesn't try to make something fancy. He just puts it in the tank and lets it go, and the fish love it that way. So, be the fish. All right, guys, we're rounding up at the top of the hour here, or at least how long I've been on. Once again, I always appreciate you guys coming and spending time with me. My reason for being here is that I hope in some way that I'm able to pass on a little tidbit of information now and then, just out of the blathering of my cranium from my experience of fish keeping, that you guys are able to take and put into use and up your game, be the fish, become a better fish keeper because of either mistakes I have made and my experience with those, or successes that I have had, often quite by accident. And, as much as I like to toot my own horn and say what a great fish keeper I am, 90% of what happens, my successes, are luck or accident. And yet luck is 90% perspiration. You have to work really hard at what you're doing and get good at it before luck is able to take over and make something happen. So the luck of having those Gorda Rivers spawn was putting the right plants in the right tank where the adults were, and then accidentally moving them into a mature setup tank where there was enough malm and detritus for those babies to survive on when we didn't even know they were in there. So sometimes you make your own luck, even if you do get lucky enough to have something work out for you. So, Jeremy, if you're still here, I'm not sure if you are or not, but one of the reasons that I'm such a stranger this time of year is because I follow the Indiana Pacers NBA basketball team with a passion. I'm a huge fanboy. I watch all the games. I go to some of the games when I can afford to, and we're right down to the wire now. So I'm watching games with bated breath, hoping my team makes it into a good slot in the playoffs, and then I'll be watching the playoffs until they're over, and then that's pretty much my sports season, unless the Colts happen to be good this year. You know, knock on wood. I'm not expecting it, but Priscilla, thank you as always. Jeremy is the stranger. Well, welcome to you, stranger. What brought you to the internet? Have you ever kept fish before? All right, guys. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the weekend and a wonderful week. Fish Fam News says keep your tanks clean and keep your fish fed. I'm not going to say keep your tanks clean. I'm going to say clean your tanks a little so that there's not anaerobic bacteria build up in the substrate, so that there's not so much leftover food in the tank that it rots in the water and causes your fish to die. But I'm going to tell you that a dirty tank is not necessarily a bad tank for fish. It may be bad for you to get the most pleasure viewing. If your kitchen is spotless all the time, then your tanks would probably be spotless all the time too and would look wonderful. But I'm here to tell you that your fish prefer slightly dirty tanks. They're going to be much happier with natural food sources for them to peruse over when they're eating, for natural food sources for the fry to survive on. So I'm gonna say keep your fish fed, but I'm not gonna say keep your tanks clean, because I'm a firm believer in slightly dirty and natural tanks are much better for fish. Much worse for fish viewers, much worse for YouTubers that are trying to film clean tanks to show on the internet. But nevertheless, good luck, you guys, and have a good rest of the week. And hopefully I'll see you back here next week. If not, I'll tell myself that you're out enjoying the potential of spring, that you're getting off your duff, and that you're going outside and exercising and enjoying nature at its finest. And good luck, guys. See you next week.